Thank you so much. So with me here, we just want to wrap up everything that we have been doing today. So I will call upon the stage three people, the ones that were presenting Prayer Session 1, Irie, FANRPAN, and Unique. I need one representative, please, to join me in front, and one representative from AATF, and finally one representative from Foster Health. Foster Health, AATF, Unique, or FANRPAN, or ILRI. So basically this session, we just want to synthesize the key messages we've been exploring and to highlight any emerging insights and identify where our opportunities are aligning for greatest impact. So we have Foster Health. Can I also have a representative from AATF? AATF, FANRPAN or Unique? So AATF is joining soon. Who is representing FANRPAN or Unique? You? All right. So AATF, please. All right, thank you. So we just start with the two. So basically, you just give us your key messages. I'll give each one of you 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There's been a number of mentions of lamentations, and at the moment I am lamenting my handwriting, so please do bear with me. So in the foster session was about mapping the pathways, identifying what is necessary, and who needs to be involved in the transformation. So we had a number of groups, and they each had to look at one particular RTF, a representative transformation pathway, looking at what needs to happen to reach the RTP, linked to whom needs to be involved. So to remind you what the RTPs are, a change in the farming system. So as an example there, it was mentioned that the shocks are the main drivers of change and of public opinion. Another driver was market access, for example, and who should be involved, the private sector, the government for compliance and regulation, and then civic society for balancing partnerships. Then another RTF is changing demands as a driver of change. A key driver there was subsidies, and those involved included the government, also the agro-dealers, who must work together to ensure the subsidies reach the right people, the farmers. Policy coherence was another driver. Executive government, very important. Water availability came up in a number of the groups, the water management agencies, and then disease outbreaks, research institutions, key to be involved. Higher productivity and commercial potential. This group categorized their drivers, policy and government, public sector, farming skills. Farming skills come up in another group as well, to ensure that small-scale farmers are skilled adequately, and there the development partners and the private sector are very important, consumer-related. General issues such as environmental issues, and then also water availability. And then the last, RTF, equity and local aspirations. And there, women empowerment, very early in the process, important diversification, policy coherence, capacity building, access to infrastructure. They also listed some negative drivers, prioritization of industrial agriculture, for example, as a negative driver, and then politicization of agriculture, and this one also came up in more than one group. And that is my story.
Okay, I was just confirming that there will be no questions, which is good. My name is Simba Svanda. I was moderating the parallel group that looked at extensive livestock systems in Eastern Southern Africa and how they impact, or rather how livestock development interventions impacted or impact food and nutrition security, adaptive capacity, and greenhouse gas emissions from these livestock systems. So adaptive capacity focusing on the smallholder livestock keepers. So this is basically work based on a project that's funded by ASIA, being implemented by 3 partners, that is ILRI, Unique Land Use, and FANRPAN. Project is being implemented in Ethiopia, Kenya, and Zimbabwe. Basically, the background to this is that there've been so much, investment in livestock development programs in the past, ranging from, rangeland management, community-based, natural resource management, animal feeds, animal health, market linkage interventions, in some cases improved breeding programs. But the question is, in a lot of these cases, these are traditionally, agriculture development programs where you're looking at improving animal productivity and production, and lately possibly income by, including market linkage aspects. But the question we're asking is, what difference has this made to food and nutrition security of the communities, also to adaptive capacity of these communities to be able to withstand shocks and be able to bounce back after shocks? And lastly, the greenhouse gas emission story, because we know the narrative is that livestock are considered the bad kid in the, in the community in terms of greenhouse gas emissions. That's the narrative. But we know that livestock are so important in African, agri-food systems, particularly for pastoralists and agro-pastoralists. And so it's not a question of just deciding that let's get rid of livestock and we can reduce our emissions by, say, 25 to 50%, depending on whether you're looking at the national emissions or just agriculture. So that was what we set out to do. So essentially what we did was we looked at literature within each country as to how these projects delivered on their original objective, and also whether they included the issues we're interested in looking at. And secondly, we then went and did retrospective surveys in the communities that had participated in these programs to see whether anything had changed, were they any better than communities, neighboring communities that had not actually been involved in these programs. And generally what we found was a lot of these programs did not include nutrition outcomes, and therefore it was not surprising that there wasn't much impact in that area. And when it came to adaptive capacity, the results were somewhat mixed, depending on the types of assets that the communities were able to accumulate. But we found that particularly assets to do with the soft side of things, human capacity, social capital, etc., these were fairly low, and therefore they tended to bring down the adaptive capacity. So what we found was, there was an improvement in some assets, given that these projects were trying to improve production and all that. So, and that improved things a bit, but the negative sort of assets kind of outweighed the benefits, so to speak. So adaptive capacity was actually not as good as it could be. So there was obviously a problem there. On greenhouse gas emissions, there was a reduction in emission intensities, especially where there was improved efficiencies in production system for the livestock. That is when we measure emissions through emission intensity, which is amount of emission per, say, kilogram of product produced, but not so much in absolute emissions. And so we see that there's in terms of policy implications, we recommend that livestock interventions would need to incorporate nutrition, as an outcome, and therefore also integrate nutrition interventions within those investments so that we can get more out of those investments than otherwise. We also saw that anything that would reduce the so-called low emission technologies, which would reduce greenhouse gas emissions but also improve livestock efficiency, would tend to reduce the emissions per unit of product produced, and therefore change the narrative that livestock actually bad for the environment. Because we know in our part of the world, consumption of animal source foods is still very low. Our populations are increasing, we're getting higher urbanization, and therefore demand for livestock products is going to be going up. So there's really not much choice there. So we have to live with that. But the solution is not to reduce the numbers, obviously politically unacceptable, but to make sure that we actually produce those animals more efficiently and therefore have a lower carbon footprint per unit product produced. We also looked at the social analysis side, the women empowerment, particularly when it comes to food and nutrition security, that we need to see women making more decisions about income at the farm level, income from livestock sales, but also making decisions on production sort of resources. And we know that when women have more agency, there tends to be an improvement in the nutrition outcomes of the household. And so obviously this is an area that also in programming needs to be emphasized and strengthened. I could say more, but I'll stop there, given that there will be no questions, but we'll have a report which will have more details than what I've covered. Thank you.
Good evening. Hey, good evening. Yeah, my name is David Tarus from African Agricultural Technology Foundation. I will be here to represent the parallel session by AATF. We were looking at the status of regulatory environment for the regulation of biotech, ag biotech products, and in particular ag biotech trade or trade of agricultural biotechnology products. So this was born out of an initiative that AATF through OFAB has been carrying out in the SADC region, targeting the countries of Angola, Zambia, Botswana, Namibia, Malawi, Mozambique, and Madagascar. So the idea was to look at the status and to find opportunities to recommend for improvement in order to support the trade of biotech products in the region. So I will just quickly look at some of the few findings that have been shared and were looked at in that parallel session. That finding number one is that agricultural biotechnology laws, there is a lack of comprehensive legislation, or if there is, they are weak, or they are outdated, or absent. And so, and it goes by country. If there was time, we would have shared that, but we can't because this is just a summary. The other thing, number two, is research capacity. So there is inadequacy of support in terms of lab support for labs for transformation, trained scientists, government funding, and also lack of focus by government programs. The other, number three, is weak border controls in terms of insufficiency of technology and tools to monitor biotech products at the border points. Limited public awareness and outreach or awareness on agricultural biotechnology in the countries, so that there is what informs discourse and discussions about biotechnology is mostly disinformation and information that is not verified. And supportive national political voices, or in most cases, negative sentiments by leaders on biotech products or GMOs. Number 5 is limited or non-existent private sector involvement on agricultural biotechnology research and trade. The other issue that came up is intense disinformation or misinformation that feed public sentiment, including the information that leaders use to make public pronouncements on agricultural biotechnology. Economic losses running into billions of dollars annually due to limited trade on agricultural biotechnology because of the legal regime that do not allow biotech products in the countries. And then lack of harmonized protocols on agricultural biotech in the SADC region. And the meeting also was informed that this process had started and it was paused. And so the recommendation is to start the process and move with the regional blocks, that is Asareka, Kadesa, and FANRPAN. Of course, working with SADC region secretariat. The recommendations that were made were as follows: that legislative reforms to close policy gaps at national levels have been recommended, and they are specific to the countries. Of course, I can't go to the details of which ones in these countries, because it was established that countries are at different stages of legislative development. There are countries which have policies, they do not have acts of parliament, and those who may have some acts of parliament, they may be acts of parliament that were developed a while back that needs to be updated, and so on and so forth. And so the other recommendation is capacity building for regulation and for regulators and policymakers on matters biotechnology, so that these are policymakers, these are people who make decisions and pronouncements. They need to do so in knowledge through public awareness and stakeholder engagement campaigns. The other thing is also to strengthen regional coordination through SADC. And of course, we have FANRPAN and Kadesa in the region who should provide technical support in that respect. Leverage international partnerships for technical and policy support, because there are other regions that have done, there are other countries that have done this, and as of course, it is important that the region also can leverage on those. And the other and important thing is to secure funding, and particularly to have budgetary allocations for biotech in terms of the development of frameworks to support biotech research, and also to support the trade initiatives in the region. And lastly is to create sustainable fee structure for biotech product regulation. We established that even for a scientist or an innovator who has a biotech product to apply to have testing and to be given permit for testing or release, it is extremely exorbitant and inhibits biotech work in the region. So finally, it came out clear that the SADC region biotech environment should be considered as a contributor to food security and economic advancement in the region. That also improved regulatory coherence and capacity will drive biotech trade, which is minimal at the moment. Empowerment of policymakers to make science-based decisions on biotech issues in the region. And that the region has really lost or forfeited a lot of income because of minimal or non-existent biotech trade in the region, to the tune of annual amount of more than $7 billion. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, our presenters. Can I quickly ask for two burning issues in the room? My left and my right. Any? that they haven't picked up? Anyone? No. All right, thank you. Thank you so much once again. Maybe before you leave the stage, can we ask for a photo, please? Our photographer. Yes, just stand there, take a picture before you leave. And as they are preparing to take a photo, can I ask Secretariat for housekeeping issues before I leave the stage? And let's keep on discussing, turning our discussions into direction, because that's the whole reason why we are here. Thank you so much. And there is a laptop here. Maybe you are missing your laptop, please. I will take it at the back to the Secretariat. You need to identify yourself before redeeming it. Thank you.
It's on. Ah, should I say that again? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. We've come to the end of day one. And before you leave, we would like to just hear some feedback on how you have found this day so that we can improve for day 2 and day 3. So they are going to project a QR code on the screen. If you can take out your phones and then quickly just scan, it will take you to a link with 5 simple questions. This won't take you even 2 minutes. Are we getting the questions? Okay, it's just 5 short questions just to gauge how you have found the day, areas of improvement, so that tomorrow can even be better. Are we winning? Okay, some are winning, some are not winning. So I think those that are not winning will need to stay behind so that they get the paper version of this. Or maybe our tech team can sort of zoom out a little bit. I don't know if maybe it's too big on the screen. Yeah, so we only have 2 results so far, and this room has over 80 people, and that's not fair. All right, take your time. I was hoping to get you out of this room at exactly 5 o'clock, but we might need 5 more minutes after. Okay. Are we managing? Okay, perfect. Thank you. All right, so whilst you're still trying to think of how you found everything for today, just to let you know that we are going to have a cocktail tonight, a welcome cocktail. That's going to be starting at 6:30. At 6:30 in the, what's the room? Gertrude, has the hotel communicated? Pomolong. Okay. So the cocktail is going to be at Pomolong. If you don't know where that is, I think you can maybe ask for guidance at reception or any hotel staff that you meet along. But one of the good things about this hotel is that the signage is really good. You should be able to find Pomolong. If not, grab any FANRPAN team member that you see and they'll be able to walk you over to the place if you're not finding the hotel stuff. All right, are we done with the questions? Question 2, please. Okay, so there's another even better suggestion. In your name tags at the back, there's a QR code. You can scan that and you'll also be able to get the questions for the evaluation. So we will check to see by tomorrow morning who has responded and who has not, and that will be your entry ticket into the venue tomorrow morning. Yeah? Question 2 is, I think you should be seeing question 2 now on your screens. I appreciate that the network is the slowest because I saw somewhere here where it says that if you want a faster speed network, you have to pay 100 rands a day. And I am sure most of you have not paid the 100 rands a day. You're on the free Wi-Fi. So maybe the speed is not as fast as we want it to be. So that's why please do take time to scan your badge at the back. There's a QR code. You should be able to get the questionnaires and then complete that. Tomorrow morning, as you come in through, we will be checking if you are one of those that have completed it or not. For now, ladies and gentlemen, at exactly 5 o'clock, would like to thank you for day 1 of the FANRPAN Dialogue. Please clap hands for yourselves. And we will meet at the cocktail. Please come ready to dance and to have a good evening. Thank you. Goodbye. 6:30 for the cocktail. Then tomorrow we start at 8:30 in the morning.